Hello everybody, Kate here for today's Spotfire session. Thank you for joining me. Today I want to talk to you about if someone says there's a problem, there's a problem. And I wanted to give you a really clear example of how sometimes we diminish somebody's concerns and say it's not a problem, and therefore we don't give it much credence or time, and we may in fact be contributing towards the problem growing and becoming more of a problem. And so I'm going to give you an example. So this is a true life example. I'm not going to tell you which industry or which workplace. You don't need to know that, but I think that it goes to the multi-levels of problems. Problems can be many, many things. So first and foremost, what happens is that somebody has made a complaint to the complaints officer that there's been a breach of process, and the person has been really incredibly forthright and full on about their concerns about this complaint, and as such the complaints officer has taken the complaint to senior management. Now in real life this happened late on a Friday afternoon, and this held people back from work on the Friday afternoon, considering what action needed to be taken with respect to this complaint. The senior management looked at the complaint and said, we don't think there's anything here. We don't think there's anything that they can complain about here, and left it with the complaints officer and said, we'll reconvene early next week to confirm that, but at this stage there's nothing here. So I want you to think about the three parties who get all involved in this process. So we have a complaint. So we have a complainant. We have the complaints officer. And we have senior management. And in this case, this also included the CEO and a senior manager. So there was at least two people. So what's happened is that this industry works with a number of different organisations. So they provide money and resources to a number of different organisations. And the complainant said that their information had been provided, or some information about them had been provided to somebody else that was inappropriate. So there was a breakdown in process, is what they're saying, and they said that this had compromised them with respect to this issue. So they made a complaint to the complaints officer, and they made lots of noise. So let's say squeaky wheel. We all know squeaky wheels when they come across, so squeaky wheel. And the complaints officer takes the complaint and says, oh dear, this seems serious because there's been a breakdown in process and this person is alleging that some information has been incorrectly or inappropriately provided to another person. Oh dear, this looks serious. And so they take it over here. These people look at it and go, not an issue. It's not an issue. There's been no breach. They did some digging around. They did some investigations themselves, and it's a non-issue. At this stage, let's think about the time that's been spent. So this person has spent a fair amount of time worrying about a process. They take it to the complaints officer. Let's say, realistically, that so far this person has listened to the complainant tell their side of the story, they've gathered some information, they've prepared some information to take to senior management. So let's say they've spent at least 2 hours on it. Let's say that this is just doing this person's head in. So we're spending a lot of time worrying over here. So lots of time worrying. So we're talking hours. Hours plus. So then our problem has come from here 2 hours, late Friday afternoon. Let's say it was an hour here on late Friday afternoon, and then there was another 30 minutes on the Monday, and then going back this way, probably another possibly 2 hours talking with this person. So all in all, there is potentially, just let me let the dog in. Come on, Margaret. In you come. So in this case, so far as dollars are concerned, there's been, let's say, 4 hours of the complaints officer's time, and let's suggest they're earning $100 an hour just to make the maths really simple. So there's $400 has been spent here. And then we've got 2 senior managers. We've got the CEO and another senior manager, and they have spent collectively potentially an hour and a half on this. So let's value their time at, say, collectively $500. So we've got nearly $1,000 worth of costs here. And then we've also got somebody here who, at the end of this process, realistically, is more unhappy than they were before, because they're being told that they've got a non-issue, and so they're more unhappy, and their behaviour might actually escalate. So all in all, we've got unhappy camper, a complaints officer who around about here might be feeling a bit embarrassed, and they've spent a lot of time on this, and then we've got these people over here who've spent a lot of time dealing with an issue that's a non-issue. So what does this teach us? What does this tell us? So at this point in time, you can imagine that senior management go, non-issue, phew, dodged a bullet, not a problem, and they don't think about it again, potentially. You've got the complaints officer going, oh, I got this wrong, feeling embarrassed, and that, God knows what impact that's going to have on their behaviour going forward, but they're feeling embarrassed because they have made a big fuss about something which has been proven to be a non-issue. And you've got a very unhappy customer who may now escalate their behaviour and be looking for ways to sabotage this business because they think they've been treated really badly. I think this scenario teaches us a lot. And what I think it teaches us is that there is a breakdown of information and training here, so that this person was never given adequate information about what to expect, so the expectations were completely unrealistic, and the system didn't provide adequate evidence and support for this person, and so they have proceeded with inappropriate and unrealistic expectations about how things operate and work in this system, and they have been allowed to continue those thoughts because nobody's ever checked them until they got to the complaints officer. The complaints officer is also not aware or completely on top of the processes and procedures, and so has, with the enthusiasm of the complainant, run the argument up to senior management. And if they'd had greater awareness of the processes and procedures, they would have been able to speak to the person who advised the complainant in the first place about what was going wrong and got that person to deal with the issue rather than escalating it up the line. And now you've got senior management who have a complaints officer who's not on top of roles and responsibilities and processes and procedures. And so this has been let's say $1,000, but it's more than that, because if it's not addressed, this problem will happen again, and it will cost the money again. Now, this complaints officer will now be more aware of those processes and procedures because it's brought everything to a head. And look, to be fair, often these things happen because somebody raises an issue that hasn't been raised before, and suddenly everybody is now acutely aware of it. But if they don't act, if there is no follow-up from this to ensure that there is better management of people's expectations when they're being dealt with in this part of the process, then this will happen again. So I think that as soon as there's a problem, even if it sounds like it's a squeaky wheel, even if it's doesn't have any realistic chance of success, there's still a problem here, and the problem is that this person hasn't been adequately advised of the process and procedures. They have unrealistic expectations, and they have triggered a mountain of work for this organisation, from the complaints going up to senior management. It's an expensive exercise, and it could be broken, and it could be stopped here with better training, better awareness of how their systems are impacting on people, and being mindful rather than, and if it got to here, the complaints officer would then be able to be aware that this is the processes, and would be able to potentially help the complainant deal with the issue rather than escalating the matter up. It also suggests that the complaints officer might need more training in how to manage complaints, because their reaction was to, without enough adequate research, take an issue to senior management, and unfortunately they potentially embarrassed themselves, and at the same time they have created a lot of work, and on a Friday afternoon when these people are probably looking to get out the door, and suddenly they're held back dealing with something that ended up not being a real problem. So if there's a problem, there's a problem, and deal with it. Deal with it as quickly as possible so that it doesn't escalate, because every time it escalates it costs you money, and it can cost you big money. This is not to say that this is just thinking about time, that there could be follow-up that's then going to come from this, which is writing up a report, managing this person here. So, you know, potentially this might escalate quite easily to a $2,000 problem. And then if this person's behaviour does escalate, if this person does go out of their way to sabotage the business now because they're not happy with the way in which they've been treated, who knows what the dollar's going to be. Could be quite big. So my advice is always, if someone's got a problem, they've got a problem. And it might be about processes and procedures, it might be that they're dealing with mental health issues, it might be that there is unfairness in the system, it might be around a whole range of different things. But if someone says there's a problem, listen really hard and see if you can work out what the problem is and what's triggering their reaction to this situation. All right, well, I hope that was very helpful to you. Just so you know, my podcast is out. It's called The Conflict Coach, so please go and check out my podcast and like and review it on iTunes, because that's what you have to say, and that would be really good if you wanted to do that. And also I have an online course which is all about how to deal with a conflict when it arises in your workplace. It's a step-by-step process. I have just released that, so if you want to know more about that, please contact me. It's a standalone course. You don't have any coaching from me, it just steps you through the process. So if that would be of some assistance to you, that would be good. It's got handouts, so you can download those and use those over and over again with your team if you want to. So if you want to check that out, it's on my website, and it's also on the Facebook page. All right, I'll catch you later. Bye.